And welcome to the Postgame Pint. We're going to be starting to do some of the Postgame Pints during the game, eighth inning of the game specifically, both because one, we want to go to bed, and two, because we find that sometimes we like to talk about the game while it's still going on. And frankly, I don't want to wait for this one to end to rehash this one because it sucked for the second night in a row. We've watched the Twins struggle versus sort of the latter half of the White Sox rotation. We've seen the lineup really struggle, and we've had this today. We were treated to a pitching performance that we weren't really was also disappointing, especially given some of the other news that goes on. I'm John Bonus of Twins Daily. With me, Nash Walker of Twins Daily and Matthew Trueblood of Twins Daily. Gentlemen, I always like to start these things with. I'm going to start this time by just asking you for you have to write the game story here. What's your headline about today's game and or Twins news? Nash, you go first.
I would say it's run of the mill. I've probably written it before, but just Twins offense sputters again Tuesday. That's what I would say. And Dobnak too maybe deserves to be in the header, but I'll give that to Matt if he wants to put Dauber's name in there.
Yeah, let's talk real briefly about that. Let's talk real briefly about it. Last night they also sputtered, but they at least had a lot of people getting on base. They just didn't come up with the clutch hits. They also were playing with half of a lineup, right? We didn't have Marwin Gonzalez in there. We didn't have Arise in there. We didn't have Rosario in there. We didn't have Sano in there. We didn't have Jeffers in there. We still don't have Garver anywhere on the roster. So you could write off the struggles of the offense in yesterday's event for Matthew. You're going to have to get further away from that camera. Good Lord.
I'm sorry about that. I'm trying a new setup, and so far it's not working. But
I'm going to try and clean your pores. It's crazy. They were struggling with. They were playing with half of a lineup, so I could kind of get behind that. But today, really this was basically sort of the same lineup. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same lineup that we'd see, but you swap out Arise for Blankenhorn. That was pretty much the starting lineup that we saw today struggle tremendously against Dunning.
Yeah, Matt, you can probably speak on Dunning a little bit more too, but I had the idea, and they said it on the broadcast before we started, that he's a lot like Dobnak. I think pitching to the fringes, sinker slider combo, and the Twins, I think traditionally since last year have had struggles barreling those guys up. And in general, hitters will struggle against pitchers like that to barrel it up. But I think that they do better against straight, even if it's 97, 98 fastballs. I think they tend to do better against that than fringy guys like Dunning. And then it doesn't help that behind home he was getting a bunch of calls. It felt like the Twins weren't getting the same calls. But I mean, it's easy to say as a Twins fan. I just thought, again, I thought the biggest point in this one was first and second. It's 4-2 in the fourth inning. Sano comes up and Dunning threw a slider that was like a foot off the plate that Sano waved at. And I thought that was the big turning point where it felt like they might be able to get going. But after that, it just didn't feel good.
On a 3-2 pitch, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and where he got the slider to hit. He got the one that sort of rolled on Dunning and stayed in the middle of the zone and just fouled that one off. And some of that is just a testament, like you said. I mean, he's deceptive. He's he's not quite as low a slot as Dobnak, so he can change eye levels a little better. He does a lot of things well, but yeah, the Twins had their chances, and especially in that at bat, it was like you had the one to hit, you fouled it off, and then you got one that you shouldn't have been even swinging at, but it looks good on its way in.
Yeah.
I want to call people's attention, whether you are joining us via Twitter, Periscope, Facebook, or YouTube, you have some way to post comments, and we have got those comments up here. Before I'm going to start displaying some of them as we're going to start talking about some of those things. You've got a place to comment, and you've got a place to ask questions. Send those in to us. We're getting them all, and we want to make sure to have you guys drive the discussion. Before we get to some of those things, Matthew, what's your headline?
Twins learn they'll need fifth playoff starter and that they may not have one.
Okay, so let's break that down, because first of all, you're referring to some news that we learned about today. Major League Baseball announced that what the playoffs are going to look like is something that has been a topic recently, in part because the Players Association has been starting to go to the press and say, we still don't know what the hell's going on for the postseason. We don't know where we're doing it. We don't know what our family's doing. We don't know what the schedule's like. We need some direction here. And we finally got that direction from Major League Baseball. Do you want to summarize it for us, Matthew?
Yeah, so the big beef that I think the players have had is stuff about the transportation to the neutral sites at which most of the playoffs are going to be played. So we're going to have this wild card round that'll be a best of 3. Those will be played at the home parks of the top 4 seeds. After that, everything's going to be at these neutral sites in Texas and for the American League in California. And players' families are going to have to go there a week in advance. They're all going to have to quarantine at hotels throughout that process. And that's raised some hackles, and I think for decent reasons. But the big thing from just a gameplay, the playoffs are going to be different this year in this specific way. Thing that we learned today is in the division series and in the league championship series, for every team that gets that far.
And in the division series.
Right, yeah.
Right, yep.
There will be no days off. We knew there wasn't going to be travel, but they're not even going to build in any days off that would sort of simulate the travel day or days that you would normally have in series of those lengths. So
just to summarize, I'm just going to quickly summarize what you just said. What they said is that basically in the first week, you're going to play 3 games right in a row. The second week, you're going to play 5 games right in a row, no off days in between them. And the third week, you would be playing 7 games right in a row, no off days. So you'll have off days between the series, but you won't have any off days during the series. And that's very different than what we've seen in postseason forever, right? Teams tend to shorten their rotation. They tend to shorten their bullpen, and they end up, with maybe only 3 starting pitchers handling, most of the things. They might never get to the 4th, or they might never get to the 5th person in the bullpen. But now it looks like if they don't, they're going to end up with some problems.
Right, and there's a wrinkle that's been a little underreported so far, I think, in that after the wild card series, there's a stretch of, let me double check it. There's 3 full days off between the wild card series and the division series, which allows for the travel to those neutral sites and getting those set up. So any team that makes it through the wild card series has a little bit of a reset. But then if your division series goes to 5 games, or if you get into the league championship series and that goes to 7, you're going to be forced to go through basically your entire starting rotation. And that means, you're going to have to be able to go 7 or 8 deep in your bullpen, just like teams do throughout the regular season. It's been years and years since teams used their entire pitching staff that way come October.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Matt. Respond to that.
At first thought, it does feel like the Twins have an advantage more so than they would in the regular format. That if they do get the Yankees in the division series, maybe Garrett Cole doesn't start Game 5. He starts Game 1. It feels like even with Dobnak's struggles lately, and Matty, you can speak on this too, but they have Kenta and Barrios and Pineda and Hill, and Odorizzi hopefully comes back and can throw well. It feels like you at least have a 6th guy like Dobnak, you would hope would be Dobnak, that could start a game if you needed it. And it sounds like, if they get to that point, they'll need it. But it feels like with their depth, and we've said it all year, that might benefit them more than, say, the Yankees or Cleveland or someone else. I think for the Twins, at first thought initially is that it benefits them, I think. And with 3 catchers now that are all starting caliber guys, hopefully Avila and Garver come back healthy, but it feels like that benefits them on the surface for sure.
I guess I'll give you my headline, which is, Twins on verge of losing AL Central after this. They're going to be 3 games back after this loss, provided they really do lose it. I don't know if the game actually finished up here. I haven't been paying enough attention. I should be keeping an eye on it. But they're going to be 4 games back in the loss column. And they don't have that many games left, and they don't have any more matchups versus the White Sox. Now, the White Sox don't have an easy schedule left, and the Twins do have a little bit of an advantage there. But basically, their schedules are identical, except that while the White Sox are playing Cleveland for 4 games, the Twins are playing Detroit for 2. Right? So, there's a chance to make up some ground there, but there just aren't that many games left in this. If they don't end up winning both of these games remaining, one with which is going to have Lucas Giolito, who's clearly the White Sox ace, tomorrow. And by the way, the Twins will not be starting their ace, Kenta Maeda. It sounds like the plan is to start Jake Odorizzi. So we'll see. By the way, that is somebody to keep in mind when we're talking about having starters and depth of 5 starters. And then they're going to come back with Dallas Keuchel, who was supposed to be kind of their second ace, and at the very least is a left-handed pitcher, which the Twins have struggled against all season. They've got an uphill climb. I wouldn't be shocked if Vegas has the Twins or the White Sox as favorites for both of these next 2 games. The Twins are going to have to overcome that to kind of to turn this back into a race. Even if they lose just one of those games, they're going to end up still 3 games back, 4 games in the loss column. And I think the AL Central is sort of a lost cause, and that sort of solidly puts the Twins in sort of the 4th spot in the playoffs, which still would mean that they would probably get home field advantage in that first round, but also might line them up against whoever the best second place team is. And right now, today, that second place team is the New York Yankees
by 14 runs.
Yeah. They have 6 remaining games versus the Blue Jays to sort of decide that second one. And today they beat the Blue Jays 20-6. And also, by the way, got back Michael Stanton, Ursula, and I don't know, somebody else from the DL. Like, they suddenly got healthy today too.
Right. Well, with the Yankees, it's the same story as the Twins when it comes to the Yankees, where they're always sort of biding their time and planning to be healthy when it really matters. The question then is, are they going to stay healthy, and are they really, truly, fully healthy when it really matters? Same way for Stanton and for Judge and for Ursula as for, Buxton and Donaldson and Garver. So it'll still bear watching, but yeah, we are really flowing quickly now toward Twins versus Yankees in the first round, and for all kinds of reasons, I'm not sure that's what the Twins would have wanted, but here we are.
Yeah, I don't know. Dash, any thoughts about the Twins-Yankees matchup in the first round?
I liked your and Aaron's conversation on this, because I think there are 2 viewpoints there where you thought, I don't want anything to do with them. We don't want to fall back into that. Aaron was saying, well, this is a good time to slay the dragon, maybe. But with the way Stanton's coming back, Ursula's back now. I don't think Paxton's going to be back, Matthew. I don't know if you know. I don't think Paxton's going to be back by that time. But they got that kid now, Davey Garcia, who looks really, really good pitching. And I just, it's lining up that way. But we also, I think it's worth mentioning that the Twins are going to see Darvish and Hendricks this weekend, likely at Wrigley. So it doesn't get any easier after Giolito and Keuchel. They have to start hitting, and we could win these next 2. The Twins have a way of bouncing back, I think, and not as much this year as last year. But they could win the next 2. They've gotten to Giolito a couple of times, defense in that second one more, and Keuchel's a lefty, and you hope Donaldson and Cruz can come around against lefties. But then you still have Hendricks and Darvish this weekend, and Alec Mills, who's coming off the no-hitter. So I think that's worth mentioning, that it's the Twins on the road too just seem like a different team. It feels like they're just so, I don't know if they're the uncomfortable of the season, that there's a lot going on there, a lot of factors there that we don't see, and we can only imagine. And I saw that tweet, like, these guys go back to their hotels and just think about it all night, and that's what Morneau said too today. I do think that that's a factor. I mean, you lose 2 road games, and it's hard to not go back and just get way down, especially after last night. I think they can win the next 2. But I think even after that, it's going to be really difficult for them, and to find the Yankees in the first round I don't think it's ideal, but maybe it is a good time. I don't know. Is there ever a good time? Maybe it's this year.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up the home field advantage piece. Right now I'm kind of assumed that the Twins would have home field advantage, but I was also assuming the Twins would not get swept out by the White Sox. If the Twins end up getting swept by the White Sox, and the Yankees end up really taking it to the Blue Jays, who they get to see several more times, there is still a chance that the Twins would have to go to New York to end up playing that first division series. The Twins right now, if they lose this game, would be 2 games ahead of the Yankees in the standings for that home field advantage. So, after these 2 games versus the White Sox, they've got 3 games versus the Cubs. That's not necessarily easy. But then you've got 2 games versus the Tigers, and then you've got 3 games versus the Reds. By then, the Reds might be out of the playoff race. It's hard to tell.
They might be, although at this
they also might not be.
They're searching, and they might be playing for their playoff lives.
You are correct. They might have the pedal to the metal at that point. Probably still the most important thing is that this team gets healthy and frankly finds their bats. So let's take a look at some of the comments that we've had up here about people trying to figure out. So one of the we've got a lot of questions about calling people up or about lineup stuff. So for instance, we'll start with this one. My biggest complaint is the assistance that Kepler leads off. I want to switch Kepler and Buxton. Okay, I can see that in terms of that, but although Buxton's on-base percentage is about 240. So, if you want to actually set the table in front of some hitters, Buxton might not be the best one, although he's got some great speed. We've also got, I would also like to drop Donaldson down to 4 or 5. I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But I don't know. Is this something where we're going to is this something where we feel like, a little bit of is that the kind of jolt that we could maybe do to shake up the lineup a little bit? Are people getting too comfortable where they are, or is this just that's unlikely to really fix the problem?
I'm just trying to wrestle with the fact that we're now having a conversation about whether people are too comfortable where they are in the lineup after what we've seen the Twins do with this lineup over the last 2 years, where hardly anybody's in the same spot ever.
Right.
No, I tend to agree. I mean, it's definitely weird on nights when Jorge Polanco is cleaning up and Max Kepler is leading off. Like, you could just totally sensibly flip those two and it would make more sense. Polanco may not run an ideal OBP for a leadoff hitter, but his big problem at this point is that power that we saw last year, especially in the first half, is gone.
Right.
So what are you doing with him cleaning up and relying on him to push runs across? I don't know that juggling the lineup, that kind of voodoo is going to change things. I think you've got to have somebody start doing something unexpected, find that groove. Sort of, I mean, Marwin Gonzalez, and I don't know what his health story is at this moment, but even as of this weekend, it looked like he was finally hitting his stride. That could be a kind of thing that changes it. Blankenhorn, being what you maybe hope he is, could shake things up just enough to get you going. But some person is going to have to start hitting in a way that they're not hitting right now, more than juggling anybody and rearranging the deck chairs,
Yeah. Let's take a look at the lineup as it went out today. I mean, you can see what Baldelli was trying to do, right? Kepler, he likes his left, right, right? He likes to have that for those late inning matchups, although that hasn't done a lot for the Twins. The Twins haven't done a lot in late innings, even with that, focus on their lineup being set.
Yeah.
You've got Kepler leading off as a left, then you've got Donaldson. Those two have been in those roles and had a lot of success in those roles. He's looking for another left-hander to bat third, and that becomes difficult. Is it Eddie Rosario? Jorge Polanco's a switch hitter, but he's stronger from the left side. Arise is out; he's hurt. And so Polanco ends up becoming your number 3 hitter, just out of. He's the best left-handed hitter remaining, I guess. I would probably you can maybe make an argument for Rosario there, but as with all the debate we've had about Rosario for the last few days, it's hard to talk about that. Cruz in the cleanup position, I don't think anybody has a problem with that. Then back to the left with Rosario, back to the right with Sano, and then we get Blankenhorn making his debut, and they keep Buxton and Jeffers in the low pressure spots towards the bottom of the lineup.
Blankenhorn just doubled, John, so first major league hit there.
Good for him. Good. Yeah, I was actually going to ask what anybody had any impressions about Blankenhorn so far.
I don't know. I mean, I think he made that play. I don't know if it was in the first or the second inning where Engel it must have been the second or third inning even, where Engel was going to first and he kind of just stayed back on that ball and didn't throw it as quick to first and could have charged maybe. Swung out of his shoes on the first pitch and popped out. I think he was probably really amped up, and I would be too. But that was my initial impression of him. Right out of the gate, the first 3 innings, he seemed like he was really pumped to be there, which is really cool, and he just doubled. So maybe he's calmed down now.
Yeah, I'll say this, and I'm not putting this on Blankenhorn. Boy, the Twins' middle infield was in terrible shape today.
Yeah.
Just absolutely really cost them a lot, and a lot of that, I don't want to put it necessarily on the defense, although certainly that Polanco throw on the potential double play, I guess, or it was really hurt them. It seemed like positioning just hurt them, or the run in the first inning was all very fieldable, very softly hit ground balls that if there's anybody even remotely close to it, is an easy out. Instead, one dribbles through shortstop because Polanco is shading way into the hole again, which we've seen that a couple nights in a row now. And then 2 more of them are opposite field ground balls against the shift, which Blankenhorn can't get over to enough. And I'm not sure that any second baseman could have gotten over. I'm not putting that on Blankenhorn necessarily. No, yeah. I had a couple thoughts about them. One is just the middle infield looked like they'd never played together, and in fact, they probably had never played together, right? And then the second one was that it looked both last night and tonight like the White Sox were making a conscious choice to try and hit it to the opposite field against our pitchers, especially in the case of a shift, which makes it even more so. And with Dobnik and his slider and how much he relies on that. And I'd also say that about the Twins in general and sliders and how much they as a whole rely on it. For right-handed hitters, that seems like a really dangerous development that they can kind of consistently kind of look for that and look to just knock it to the right side of the field, especially when on those occasions when we have a shift in place. I don't know. And that was just I didn't know if it was just coincidence or if it was something that we should be watching for and looking for and worried about.
It's more than coincidence. I'll say that. The White Sox right-handed hitters especially, and this is actually something, there's been research from a few of the prominent names. Tom Tango, I think Ben Lindbergh dug into this recently, showing that, Russell Carlton, my colleague at Baseball Prospectus, have showed that shifts, which we've been kind of tugging back and forth on the efficacy of those over the last few years, right? They basically have settled on, they work pretty well against lefties. Most of the time, they do not work against right-handed batters. And that can be for a lot of different reasons. But in the case of these White Sox hitters, especially Anderson, whom people have stopped shifting on, thank goodness, and Abreu and Jimenez, it's because they have just decided they're going to learn to hit it right through that shift. And since the big data says that it's not really effective against right-handed batters anyway, I think they've got to just turn that shift off against right-handed batters most of the time, especially against the White Sox. Hopefully that was lesson learned tonight. But you're right. I mean, and that ball that got through because of where Polanco was positioned, well, we saw them do that a lot last year. We thought that they were using that to sort of creatively cover for Polanco's deficiencies. We're going to position him way over in the hole, and his defense will be less of a problem that way. I thought we'd see it less when Donaldson was healthy and in the lineup, but they're still doing it, and that still leaves an unfortunate gap up the middle on, when they're positioned just that way. So that's tough. And then it gets compounded when you have a pitcher on the mound who just doesn't miss bats. And that's becoming the big story around Dobnik. We all like a lot of the things he does, and there's still a lot of ways he can help this team, but he's just not missing enough bats at this point. And that takes away the ability to just strike a guy out when it's hard to defense against them, or when you can't afford contact and a productive out in that situation and you need the strikeout. Dobnik can't give that to you right now.
Is that because we got a question from Mike Link on that last thought? Dobnik seems to have lost any chance for a postseason start. I don't think that's true given the news that we heard today. I think they still might need to rely on him for a postseason start. We've got basically 3 guys, I think, unless Homer Bailey shows back up. Right. We've got 3 guys. Huh?
Didn't that feel like just a footnote a couple of days ago, like, oh yeah, he's still throwing, we might take a look. Now suddenly it's like, oh yeah, if he comes up and has a decent start against the Reds on the Saturday before the season ends, he might be looking at a roster spot and a potential start in the division series if they get that far. Might
Right.
be. I mean, but you have to talk about it.
I mean, you do have to talk about it. So that we got 3 or 4 guys competing for 2 spots, right? Because once we get to I presume once we get to the ALDS, we're going to be talking about that. I mean, unless they're also talking about maybe one of those starts becoming a bullpen game, but they've got to be careful about bullpen games too.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be worried about that on some things. Let's take a quick look at the other problem with trying to figure out exactly, who is going to fit into that spot and where they're going to get some starts is we just don't have that many starts left. Hold on for a second. I'll show the thing here. Yeah, here's the remaining calendar schedule, folks. We've got Odorizzi going tomorrow, we think, right? I think we've got Maeda on scheduled for the 17th, right?
Yes.
After that, we've got 8 games left, and we've got we got to get the 3 big guys in there. I'm guessing we'll maybe see Barrios and Maeda here, Pineda there. That would line them up well for starts on the 29th, 30th, and 1st, right? Is Homer Bailey starting one on the 26th or the 27th? We've also got to get Odorizzi a second start at some point. Rich Hill's got to be fit into there at some point.
I mean, if they want Hill to start in the playoffs, they'd probably like another start to evaluate him.
Right.
Or, evaluate where he is. So this is the really tricky thing, and this is going to be my next article at the site at Twins Daily. I think that they should probably consider moving Dobnak to the bullpen because Dobnak has a unique thing in that he gives opponents a completely different look from anyone else in the Twins rotation. Like, you can bring him in as a reliever right on the back of anybody else that starts for the Minnesota Twins except maybe Barrios, and it's a totally different look that sort of playing with contrasts that has been proven to work and statistically is something he could maximize for them. But if you want to do that, you've got to develop confidence in at least 2 of Hill, Odorizzi, and Bailey here down the stretch. And how do you do that in the time allotted and the number of starts that are left?
Right.
It's really tough.
You really want to see 2 more starts, 2 more decent starts from Odorizzi and Hill. To kind of you have to give at least 1 more start to Barrios and I mean unless you're just going to say to Barrios or Maeda or whoever you're throwing on the 21st or the 24th just to get your pitches in, we're basically skipping you in the rotation and we're going to then start you on the 29th or 30th, which that would be a bold choice.
Yeah,
I guess a little bit risky.
Especially if there's literally anything at stake. If you're still playing for home field advantage in the wild card round, or if there's still a door open to the AL Central, it's hard to justify that.
Right. I'll give you. Let's see if we got some other good comments here. Switch over back to this here. Do we have no comments about the umpiring?
Oh, we got one. What about the tight zone from Mom Insane?
What about the tight zone? It was tight on one side.
Yeah.
Weak on the other side. I just that was almost one of my headlines. Does anybody else here? Do either of you two have? There's no question in my mind the umpiring feels worse this year than it has ever felt to me before.
Unbelievable.
Right?
It feels like every night.
And I'm trying to figure out why. Now, I'll give you three possibilities, and then I will open up the floor for other options. Okay. The first is they didn't have as much time to prepare as they have in the past, right? Which I can see that being a skill that is honed during spring training. They didn't really have hardly any spring training, right? I mean, They did occasionally go in and sit in on those scrimmages and kind of jump in. Some of them got, put into those roles, but they didn't really have much of a spring training at all. And they needed that, right? That'd be number one. The second is the technology has just gotten so good during the game with that little outline over that we can see it a lot more clearly. And I think that was still the case last year and the year before, that we kind of had that, but maybe it's just gotten a little bit better. And so it's a little bit more clear and a little bit more obvious to us. Here's my third one. Could it be that it's just that we care a lot more because it's a shorter season? Because every game counts 3 times as much. Every blown strike call counts 3 times as much. And that we, when that happens in May, we just kind of go, yeah, that sucked, but it's eventually going to be made up for it. We've got 4.5 more months. That stuff just happens. But when you don't have 4.5 months, when you've only got 4 weeks, 6 weeks or something, and they haven't completely gotten into their groove, that we just care a lot more about it, or it's a little bit more infuriating to us. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Let me spin that one like 45 degrees. Maybe it's not even that we care more, or we feel like there's less of an opportunity for it to even out or anything, and more that our nerves are all just way more strained and our tolerance is way lower. Like, we are spending
it's 2020 itis.
Yeah, our
is
patience and our magnanimity and our sort of generosity of spirit is being spent in a whole bunch of other areas right now, and we are not especially inclined to go, yeah, I'll miss that call, but I'm sure you'll get back the next one, and it let me widen the lens and see that didn't determine the outcome of the game. No, we're angry because we're not that far from being angry at any given moment. I think that could definitely be part of it too.
All right.
It feels really blatant this year, though. Like, it feels like some of those are, like, John, I think you tweeted, I'm like, you're embarrassed for them because some of them are so bad. And maybe there have been in prior years, and like you're saying, maybe we're just quicker to get angry right now. But it feels like some of them, like that one down to Jeffers was brutal. And then that outside pitch to Nelly was brutal. Like, some of them are just so bad that it's like, it's almost, you just like shrug your shoulders and say, what are we doing? It's just, it feels like there's more of that.
Is it also possible they are really more shaken up by the fact that they can hear everything from the bench?
Probably.
I think there's some of that. I also think there are concrete things here. We can talk about some of those soft factors, and I'm more than half serious with what I just said, but I'll also add it's something like a dozen veteran umpires opted out of this season for health and safety reasons. And that's the right choice for them, and I'm glad they did it, but it also puts a lot of pressure on a umpiring corps that I don't know. I've had the feeling in the past that MLB was not cultivating an especially deep bench of umpires. And, when guys came up to cover from the minor leagues, when umps went on vacation, you tended to notice, even in past seasons.
Yeah,
we have a lot more the equivalent of umpire vacation games this year as a percentage of all games, because there are a bunch of umps who just the whole season they're not here. And also they're rotating umps on a much tighter, they're trying to keep sort of not exclusively, but almost exclusively keep umpires within these divisional geographic pods to just minimize travel, minimize risk of cross exposure and stuff. And that's led to more familiarity, which I think maybe inevitably leads to more, if something's kind of grating at you, if this catcher was needling you for a couple of calls he didn't get last game, well, I might not give him this one either because I'm a little grumpy. But instead of that happening 3 months later and you've kind of forgotten about it by now, that was only a week ago that you were behind the plate and he was grousing at you. So
right.
It's a weird season for umpires too, especially for umpires maybe.
I do want to say, and I'm curious of both of your viewpoints, but I think what it's felt like, at least over the last month or so too, we feel like the 2019 Cleveland Indians to me, and the White Sox feel like the 2019 Twins, where it feels like a lot of things not go their way, because I didn't like that people said that about us last year, because I think there were a lot of injuries and there were a lot of things that happened. But I think it seems like it's just, they are just, everything's clicking for them. And it feels like we're running into kind of a really almost a juggernaut of heat right now, where it's like it's really hard to beat them right now. And I think Cleveland felt that way about the Twins last year. But I think it's been almost a 180, and we've seen some regression, and we were scared of that. And I don't know. And I'm curious if you guys think we can draw that from 60 games. I don't know. That's just the feeling that I've had of we are continually getting disappointed because we're getting outplayed by them, and they're winning more games, and we're struggling.
Yeah, I didn't feel like that coming into the season. I didn't feel like that in Series 1, and I didn't feel like that in Series 2. But I feel like it this time. Yeah, I feel, partly is they were making so many mistakes in some of those games. It was hard to feel like they were playing good baseball or they were a better team when they were kicking the ball all around the field. That was part of it. We came into this series 4-2 against them, right? And now we're 4-4, right? But yeah, right now it feels like all the momentum is going their way, and none of the momentum is going the Twins' way. And it's amazing how much the feeling and the optimism can shift in 48 hours, right? This is just 2 games, right? I thought it was amazing how much it could shift in 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago from last Monday was when there was the low point of losing to Giolito and Kepler getting the ball to bounce out of right field out of his glove. And 2 weeks later, the Twins looked unbeatable, and they're ready to go beat up. Soon after that, they won 2 games versus the White Sox, those next 2 games. Then 2 weeks later, they're at the top of their, challenging the White Sox for the division. They're going to have the big showdown. And 48 hours later, it just feels like, we are the second best team in this division right now. And maybe the focus should be on let's get everybody healthy and try to figure out how we can hit a baseball before we have to end up facing the Yankees 2 weeks from tonight, right? Which is when the postseason is going to start. So I think it does feel like that. I don't know if it's real, but it sure feels real.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I thought we would end this on the. I'm sorry about the audio stuff. I don't know if you guys could hear that stuff, but I thought we'd end it with the Byron Buxton home run here, inside the park home run. And I wonder how much of it they're going to show.
I thought Robert was going to catch that.
So did he, clearly. It is fun.
I also want to just kind of keep going because I'm almost sure he was not running hard until he got about midway, until he got to second base and saw Robert hit the ground. Do you guys agree or not?
Yeah. I thought he was going to get a triple because it felt like when he was rounding second, Robert was kind of getting to it or was getting to it or someone was getting to it.
Let's see this.
I think it was, and we'll see if we get a positive angle, but here we go. No.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matthew. I couldn't hear you. Say again.
What I've always seen with Buxton is he can kind of jog, sure. Most of the time he's running, and it's what anyone else in the league would call fast. But then you can still see him shift gears. So you're like, oh, he wasn't even running before. He kind of was. It's just he has turbo. He's got like a nitro that he can just throw on. And that's what you see happen every time he knows, oh, I can get an extra 90 or 180 here. That's when and then you think, oh, he wasn't even running before that. I think he was. It's just there's another gear for him that no other human in MLB has.
Let's see if we can see that real quick. Let's see him hit that gear. Go.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Midway through between first and second, he decides he's gonna.
Helmet did not stand a chance.
And kudos to him, because do you guys remember when he first came up? It was the same thing, and he'd have these long strides when he was just running, and it was fast. And then he'd go into turbo, and he'd start like windmilling his arms in the weirdest ways.
Right.
And that's when he would do those headlong falls on the bases. He seems totally under control now. He still can absolutely.
Did you see him rounding first base tonight, Matthew?
Yeah, well, that
with the helmet.
Yeah, he's catching the helmet like doing a dance step too, just trying to make it back to first base.
He's going so fast he can't keep his helmet on his head. Who was the guy famous for losing his helmet for the Twins. Time after time after time. Every time we got to first base. A couple years ago, we traded him to the Red Sox. Nunez.
Yeah.
Eduardo.
Eduardo Nunez? Yeah, right. Yeah. So, okay. All right, let's wrap it up. Thank you very much to Matthew Trueblood. Thank you very much to Nash Walker for joining us today. I want to thank everybody who joined in and gave us comments and questions and opinions and kept us tuned in to watch. You can find this on postgamepint.com. You can also find it on the game recap. You can also find it on our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, or our Twitter feed. And if you want to know whenever we're doing one again, follow us on any of those platforms, and we will let you know about it. We're going to be having another one tomorrow night, probably starting again in the middle of the 8th inning or 10 o'clock, whichever comes first. And hopefully we'll have better news for you then. Talk to you tomorrow night. Until then, win Twins.
John, Matt, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.